Today is Monday, July 3rd. We're talking about rulings in some of the most anticipated cases of the U.S. Supreme Court term, from student debt relief to LGBTQ rights to religious rights, and what they mean for Americans moving forward. Also, we'll explain some of the new state laws that went into effect over the weekend concerning education, abortion, marijuana, and more. Plus, how the government wants to make online reviews more reliable, why Twitter is limiting how many tweets users can see, and the world's first fully flying car available for pre-order now. Those stories and more news to know in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The U.S. Supreme Court ended this term with decisions about some of the more divisive issues in America. One that's going to impact about 1 in 8 Americans. The High Court killed President Biden's plan to cancel $430 billion in student loan debt. The court's decision came down 6-3. All 6 of the more conservative-leaning justices say the Biden administration overstepped its authority with its plan by not going through Congress. With this decision, tens of millions of Americans who already qualified for debt relief will now restart monthly payments. Student loan interest will resume September 1st, and payments will be due starting in October. That said, President Biden is still calling debt relief a priority. His administration apparently has a plan B. The president says through the Higher Education Act, he'll be able to, quote, compromise, waive, or release loans under certain circumstances, though the details aren't clear. And even President Biden warns this process is going to take longer than Plan A. The White House also said borrowers who miss a student loan payment in the first year after payments resume will get a little leeway. They won't be reported to credit bureaus, placed in default, or referred to collection agencies, at least not right away. But Biden says anyone who is able to make monthly payments should be ready to do so. Another controversial Supreme Court ruling came down 6-3 along partisan lines. In that one, most justices decided businesses can refuse to serve same-sex couples if doing so violates their religious beliefs. It started with a case of a Colorado web designer who wanted to sell and create wedding websites, but only to straight couples. Well, the conservative majority on the court decided that's okay, saying she shouldn't have to promote messages that violate her faith. But the liberal justices in the minority called the ruling a new license to discriminate. President Biden is now asking Congress to pass the Equality Act. That would expand current federal civil rights laws that already protect people of all colors, religions, sexes, and nationalities to also cover LGBTQ Americans. One more ruling we want to mention that has to do with religious rights, and that decision was unanimous. The court ruled in favor of a Christian postal worker who got in trouble for refusing to work Sunday shifts for religious reasons. He sued the USPS for religious discrimination. Well, the justices all clarified the law, saying employers must accommodate their workers' religious beliefs as long as the accommodation doesn't impose an undue hardship on the business. And with that, the case goes back to a lower court that will rule on the suit based on the High Court's clarification. Baltimore is now mourning the loss of young people who were killed in a mass shooting. Shooters opened fire at an annual block party early yesterday morning. An 18-year-old woman and a 20-year-old man were killed. At least 28 others were hurt by gunfire, and more than half of them were younger than 18. Police say they are still searching for suspects. They haven't released too many details about these suspects or a possible motive yet, but they say, quote, we know for sure there were more than one. Investigators are now asking anyone with information or pictures or videos from security cameras to come forward. For nearly a week now, France has been dealing with riots, bringing violence, injuries, fires, and thousands of arrests. It all started when a police officer killed a teenager of Algerian descent in a Paris suburb. His death reignited debate on policing in France and raised questions over whether race may have been a factor in his death. The officer who killed him has been charged with homicide, but ever since, protesters have been calling for an end to all police brutality. Some rallies and marches have been peaceful, but many times they've gotten out of control. Protesters have used fireworks and stones to attack police, and buildings have been damaged or destroyed. Over the weekend, the mayor of a Paris suburb said his home was attacked, calling it an assassination attempt on his family. Now, France's president is calling for calm. Many cities have announced curfews, and police are on high alert. For the second time in less than 3 weeks, a bus carrying migrants from a Texas border city arrived in downtown Los Angeles. The LA mayor's office says no one there was formally notified ahead of time, but learned about the bus on Friday when it was on its way. Faith and immigrant rights groups welcomed the bus when it got there on Saturday, giving people on board water, food, clothing, health and legal services, and more. All of the passengers are seeking asylum here in the U.S., though they come from 8 different countries. The LA Times says they all have family, court dates, or both in Los Angeles. Since April of last year, Texas has bused about 23,000 migrants to New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, Denver, and Washington, D.C., as well as Los Angeles. Some cities say they've struggled with getting enough resources together without advance notice. The Texas governor has said the buses are a form of protest against Democrats' immigration policies, as well as a way to alleviate the burden on overwhelmed Texas cities. Even more buses and flights are expected to go out in the future. New government data shows what the Federal Reserve has been wanting to see, an economy that's slowing down. For starters, the Fed's preferred measure of inflation only increased by 3.8% compared to the same time last year. That's the lowest annual change in 2 years, even though it is still shy of the central bank's 2% target. The data also shows that after taking inflation into account, personal income actually rose a little bit by 0.3%. The saving rate went up too. Many economists say these are mostly good signs, but they expect the Fed to keep up its strategy of raising interest rates again, probably as soon as this month. We have much more news for you still ahead. But first, a break to thank our sponsor, HelloFresh. So if you're feeling stuck in a recipe rut and want to switch things up this summer, check out HelloFresh. It's America's #1 meal kit. You get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Perhaps it's the closest we can get to having it all: free time and fresh, tasty food. Since they take care of the meal planning and delivering all the ingredients you need, it is so much easier. And the other bonus, pre-portioned ingredients help cut down on food waste. And they help make cooking feel doable, even enjoyable, instead of just a chore. Plus, they have so many options, including a seasonal fresh and fit summer menu, or what I've been liking since I'm usually pretty tight on time, the fast and fresh options that are ready in just about 15 minutes. Chicken and tomato grain bowls with garlicky white sauce and lemon is just one example. And a reminder, Green Chef is now owned by HelloFresh, so no matter which one you choose, there is something for everyone. Go to HelloFresh.com/newsworthy50 and use code newsworthy50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/newsworthy50 and use that code newsworthy50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Believe it or not, we are now halfway through 2023. And the start of July meant the start of hundreds of new laws in different states around the country. So here's just a few of the most talked about ones. First off, in Florida, House Bill 1069 went into effect, which bans any kind of discussion of sexuality before 6th grade. Critics call it the Don't Say Period bill, since menstruation is one of the topics educators won't be allowed to teach kids about until they're in 6th grade. It also encourages sex education teachers to teach the, quote, benefits of monogamous heterosexual marriage. Also in Florida, a law took effect that bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy unless the life of the mother is at risk. A 12-week abortion ban went into effect in North Carolina, as well as a new law that allows people to carry concealed guns on school properties. Then there's Maryland. It became the 21st state to make marijuana legal for recreational use for anyone 21 and older. In Georgia, South Dakota, and Tennessee, it's now illegal for minors to get gender transition surgery. In California, former criminals can move to have their records sealed after finishing their sentences as long as they don't reoffend within 4 years, though that won't apply to those convicted of serious violent crimes. Federal regulators are now trying to crack down on any online reviews that are less than honest. The FTC proposed a new rule that would make it illegal to write or sell fake reviews, buy positive reviews, suppress honest reviews, and more. It would also ban so-called review hijacking that makes reviews for one product appear like they were written for a totally different one. The rule is now subject to a 2-month public comment period. Assuming it survives that step, people who violate the rule could face big penalties. Like businesses could end up fined up to $50,000 for each time a customer sees a fake review. Twitter has a new limit to the number of tweets you can read in a day. Owner Elon Musk says if an account is new and unverified, they can only read 500 tweets at a time. For unverified accounts that have existed for a while, that number is 1,000 a day. For verified accounts, meaning those with check marks, it's about 10,000 a day. Musk says these limits are temporary to address what he called extreme levels of data scraping and system manipulation. He didn't explain further, But some reports suspect he's talking about how artificial intelligence companies pull data to train their large language models that power chatbots like ChatGPT and Bard. Other reports say Musk could just be trying to push more people toward the paid subscription service Twitter Blue that gives users verified status. The first fully flying car that really looks like something out of the Jetsons is now available for pre-order. The FAA just gave the go-ahead for automaker Aleph Aeronautics to start testing it on the road and in the air. The company says the car is able to take off and land vertically or horizontally. It's also fully electric. It's expected to have a road range of 200 miles and a flying range of 110 miles. Aleph says it will cost about $300,000. And the company's CEO has said the goal is to start delivering to customers by the end of 2025. Well, that's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. And today we have good news for anyone planning 4th of July celebrations over the next few days. Some festivities are going to be a little easier to afford this year than last, like a classic cookout. The American Farm Bureau says families will pay about $68 for a party of 10, down 3% from last year's record high. But it really depends on what exactly you're making. Sirloin steak is more expensive than last year, but chicken breast and egg salad will cost less. Road trips will also cost a little less since gas is cheaper now than last summer. And those savings mean more money to spend on fireworks. That's what a lot of people seem to be thinking anyway. The American Pyrotechnics Association says Americans are buying more rockets, Roman candles, sparklers, poppers, fountains, and other firecrackers this year, and they're spending about $100 million more than last year. Overall, the APA says revenues could exceed $2.3 billion for the 4th of July fireworks season. A quick note before we go today that we will not have an episode tomorrow due to the 4th of July holiday. We are wishing you all a happy 4th, and we'll be back on Wednesday with all the news you may have missed. Also, instead of a second sponsor today, here's a reminder to add another podcast to your playlist called The Jordan Harbinger Show. It's won a bunch of podcast awards for good reason. I know Jordan personally, and he is a great interviewer. He goes in depth with all types of fascinating guests, like the conversation he had with an undercover FBI agent who builds relationships with potential terrorists, or another episode that tells the story of a cinematographer who discovered a lost city in the jungle and made one of the most important archaeological finds of the century. He's also had more well-known names on the show, from Matthew McConaughey and Ludacris to LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman and more. Jordan has a gift for getting his guests to reveal never-been-heard-before stories and insights so we can all learn from their unique superpowers. He also has other helpful types of episodes like how to quit your job the right way. So go check it out. Search The Jordan Harbinger Show. That's Harbinger, H-A-R-B as in boy, I-N as in Nancy, G-E-R. Wherever you listen to podcasts, add it to your playlist for After the Newsworthy when you need something to listen to that's longer than 10 minutes. We hope you love it. All right, thank you so much for being here today. We will be back with much more news to know on Wednesday. For now, have a great day, and again, happy 4th of July.